today's illustrious speaker, Dr. Janki Raman. He had his graduation in electronics engineering from Anna University, and he went on with his academic pursuits to gain a master's degree, and then he topped it up with a doctorate also. He's a veteran of 17 years with Messrs. Obo Betterman, which is a leading player in the lightning protection, earthing, and surge protection. In his long experience with Obo, he has served at various key positions, and now he is leading the lightning protection product vertical as the head technical, and his services are availed by Bureau of Indian Standards as a committee member of various standard committees like Committee for Safety of Machineries and Committee for National Building Code also. And now, with all respect and honor, I welcome Dr. Janki Raman to share his wisdom and insights with us.
When you talk about lightning, there are several aspects which are to be observed, understood in terms of making a risk assessment, and that risk assessment report should be utilized for making a proper assessing a proper protection measure what is to be given to that building. On that basis, we have a 1989 old data which is given an IS standard, as well as National Building Code 2016 carries this information, which shows the number of thunderstorm per square kilometer per year. So each location has got a tabulation of a number of square kilometer, number of thunderstorms that happened in that particular area, which will give us a basic primary information to understand how vulnerable is that area towards lightning. We will not exactly consider this because, due to climate changes on every year on year, there are chances that more number of accidents can still happen. And it is just a thumb rule to guide you with a basis that, most of the coastal areas and the northeastern areas of India have got high number of lightning strikes, very frequently in a year. Right. So several statistics has been presented by the previous presenter who gave you an idea, Mr. Krishna Kumar, who gave you an idea about the number of accidents that happen. In India, every more than 2,500 people died due to lightning, and experts believe that the severity and frequency of thunderstorms are expected to shoot up due to increased global temperature. Absolutely, we all know this. A graphic of 2001 to 2014 has been highlighted here, out of which, if you see, due to several calamities, this information is taken from National Crime Records Bureau, NCRB, and here whatever we have given here, this information, if you see, 43% has happened in central India due to lightning, 18% in rest of the parts, like 6 and 7% in the northern part of India. Now this shows the lightning has got a severe vulnerability, and that has got a high risk towards damages that happen due to natural calamity. About 500 recorded deaths all over India was only due to lightning, and this is an information from 2018, 2019 information. Even in this, if you see, the highest scorer is lightning, floods, earthquake. Several people do die. Even what I feel is that this kind of information is also not sufficient, because many people in the open fields die, many cattle die, many kind of accidents that happen. People may not be able to record or probably come and report that the casualty has happened because of lightning. So such kind of lives will not be recorded. However, with the available information, 519 is something exorbitantly high. Not necessary that a human being has to alone die. There are chances that the risk of monuments which is getting affected due to lightning is also possible. And there was even a situation in Jaipur which happened where about 16 people got struck by a lightning near the building where they were trying to take some selfies or something. Death of livestock, this is also covered in the standards, because for us, not only human beings are life, obviously livelihood will be for a human being with the livestock also. Maybe a person who is having 100 cattle and he's going to manage it, obviously it is going to be a life as well as it's going to be an economical risk. So when you try to say a protection measure, the protection measure should ensure the protection of a human being, associated aspects, economic loss to that person, and if there are any cultural heritages that are to be protected, that should also be taken care of. So National Crime Records Bureau Statistics 2019 shows you, in several states, this different states having different risk levels of due to lightning. If you see between April 2020 to March 2021, which is marked in yellow color, these are death rates, and death rates between 19 and 20 is given for your comparison, which shows maybe specifically in Bihar, the numbers have gone double, almost double than 2019. Year on year, this accident is increasing. Accidental deaths in India is also reported and recorded, and several measures are being taken. What can help people in protecting against a casualty? Remember, when it comes to lightning, you can protect the building, you can protect your electrical and electronic equipment with all kind of devices which is available as guided by the standard. However, protection of human being comes purely by giving them an awareness. Unless you give an awareness to them and make them stay inside a building during time of lightning, the risk cannot be avoided. There are several basic do's and don'ts during time of lightning. Just for for a societal benefit, this slide is being presented. Do not stay outside a building. First of all, do not stay near a balcony window which is having a metal sheet frame or something. Do not touch the plumbing lines is also being suggested. No outside place is safe. If you are driving, probably staying inside a vehicle without opening the glass can probably be safe, but still people who are half out, half in can also be under a severe risk. So when you are doing an outing, avoid elevated locations, avoid water related activities like swimming. Even many buildings in India, if you see the hotels which are coming up with a terrace swimming pool, have got a high risk. When we talk this to the architect or the client, probably they say, for us the aesthetic is important and people wanted to see this infinity pool and all. Like, this is highly risky. You can't protect a person who is going to swim during that time. Absolutely, the life is under threat. Even you have the best lightning protections done for that particular building. Because I'm going to touch upon those topics, which I will explain in the coming slides. So I'll take you through a couple of case studies to insist the severity of lightning and what does this equipotentialization means. Mr. Krishna Kumar was mentioning the topics which is going to be presented today. One among that, equipotentialization. The very purpose of entire lightning protection system, it does an equipotentialization, which means equalizing the potential difference is what exactly the system does. Now we can see in the image, the left side image on the top is a building which got struck by lightning, and the other images are the substantiated images taken inside the same building of a collapse of the complete building. So how did it happen? Even before visiting this site, I have not seen such a worst accident which has happened ever before. What had happened was lightning struck this building just 1.5 meters behind this window on the sheet, which was witnessed by the security guard by about 1 o'clock or something in the night. Lightning struck this building. This building did not have a lightning protection system. However, they assumed that, okay, my metallic sheets are there and metallic pillars are there, so this is going to anyways conduct the current and ground it. Absolutely, yes. If it is properly connected, even standard permits this kind of a usage, which is called as utilization of natural component. Now, using a natural component and grounding it itself is provided as a provision. However, how do we do it is very important and very critical. In this building, yes, there was a sheet metal, there were beam pillars which are available in metal, so this could have considered as a natural component for bringing the current. However, what has happened was the sheet and the beam column, when it was connected, there were some gaps in between which did not properly get equipotentially bonded. So there was a strike on the sheet. The sheet was punctured. There was a flashover which jumped inside, and that sparked to the cables which were running on the trays around the building. The insulations of the cable got fire, and this insulation completely carried the fire inside. And this building, this particular industry was an industry which was making pillow materials, like the inside rayon material inside the pillow. So the materials were stacked vertical, not horizontally. The materials were stacked till the top in a vertical manner. So the fire was easily getting penetrated through all the material which was kept here. And remember, when I went to the site and we wanted to investigate and take a photograph, we checked with the firemen over there. They gave an information that the temperature inside the building when they arrived was about 1700 degrees. So they could not enter into that premise for at least 2.5 hours till the fire was put out from outside. So a small lightning strike which created such a big havoc and which created such a big complete collateral damage to the structure. This is possible if the system is not equipotentially bonded. Right. So the vulnerability lightning map is being presented by NASA and various other climatic resilient organizations, where you can see the vulnerability. The green portions are lightning free areas, and these yellow, dark yellow and red portions are more vulnerable areas. So we in India have got almost all the locations covered with lightning frequency. Now, there is a common myth among people that if you have a lightning protection system, you are completely protected. For example, if you are giving a coverage of protection area, giving a design on this basis, saying that these areas are protected, people still have a mentality of walking here and there and claiming that, okay, I have a lightning protection which will completely cover, so I am in a safe zone. Remember, this does not apply, because if there is a lightning strike, probably if you have this kind of a vertical termination, the lightning striking on the person directly can only be avoided. However, there are fair chances that the person touching any metallic object or a tree nearby, the person standing on the ground will encounter a step potential, he can encounter a touch potential, or even if he is in an unsafe distance between the object and him, there shall be a chance that the spark over can happen during this moment of lightning which is passing through the conductive area. So any best lightning protection system cannot protect a human being who is outside a building. Even if you see the standard says protection of structures, protection of human beings inside the structure only. So this is to be kept in mind, and that is why I said at the beginning, awareness is more important in terms of protecting a human life. Right. So there are also various situations where in a stereotypic protection measure may not work out. For example, if there is a building which is even protected with a vertical terminal, down conductors and earthing, but the building has got a lot of trees surrounding, there's fair chances that still the lightning can hit the trees because they grow higher and higher over a period of time. And lightning strikes can be taken through the tree, and this tree, if it is very close to the building, can also give a flashover, or this can come to the ground and rise as a ground potential rise. So this kind of a building or a special kind of areas do not stop only with a conventional type of a vertical terminal and down conductor. Your measure of increasing the ring earthing around the building can reduce the electromagnetic interference to penetrate inside the building. So these kind of specific designs are also to be practiced is an important point here. So this case study we have seen just before. The second case study is how do I select my protection system? So for example, a literal typical case study I'll tell you. Whenever we go and meet clients who have got some damages or who got some accidents because of lightning, we assess the site. So at that time, the client used to say there was a lightning and there were equipment damage. They will simply say we will go for an external lightning protection. If you ask why, before that, am I going fast? Is it okay? Any one participant? Is the flow okay? Maybe any one participant can respond.
Yeah, Janki Raman, you can go proceed. That's fine.
All right. So when people ask, okay, we want an external lightning protection, then we will ask, why do you want an external lightning? They say, okay, if I avoid a strike happening on the building, all my problems will be solved. Now, to better understand this, I'm going to present a case study here. This accident happened in the south of Tamil Nadu, where there was a lightning strike on top of the building. And this building did not have a lightning protection. And it came in the newspaper saying that there was a strike on the structure, and probably through the reinforcement rods, the current would have gone, and inside this equipment as the boards have got failed. Now, on seeing this, we had a suspicion, because when lightning strikes here, and yes, absolutely, even if it travels through the reinforcement bars, this particular switchboard or the light do not have a column nearby. The rebars obviously run inside the column. And since there are absence of column, this could not have directly impacted. So we went to the site, we understood. Almost all plug connections, all electrical junction points got this burns. And not only that, every resident in that apartment got a failure. So then we detailedly investigated what could have been the reason. So what came to our mind was when we assumed, when we observed the site completely, this is the building. there was a high tension wire which is going just closer to the building, and below which there was a crossing of low tension line which is entering into the building. This was the distance between both the cables was not sufficient. Probably the lightning would have struck on the building and the side flash would have struck on this cable, and the electromagnetic interference would have entered through the low voltage line. And only when the surge enters into this network, obviously all electrical equipment connected on that particular network can have a failure. So now if the client goes with an external lightning protection alone for the building, this failure would have still continued because the source of lightning entering into the building was entirely different. So that is why standard defines 4 sources of lightning strikes inside. I'll just explain when it comes to the next slides. Now, to clearly understand what I have told till now, to summarize this, there are 3 important aspects. The first aspect is of protection of human life, which comes purely by awareness, giving them an idea of to stay inside a building and not to touch any metallic object during that time. The second point was to protect the building. That building protection should go with proper lightning protection system. I utter this word proper because just having one spike on a building and then saying that okay, it is fulfilling the statutory need may not suffice. You need to calculate the size of the building and should be sufficient number of conductors and sufficient number of down conductors should be there. Then protection of electrical and electronic equipment, that comes purely by providing surge protection devices. So these surge protection devices are the one which is going to completely protect the electrical and electronic equipment from failure, even if you have an external lightning protection system. Now, National Building Code 2016, Volume 2, Part 8, Section 2, Electrical and Allied Installation talks about this in detail, which is covered in the IS-IEC standard also. So I'll just rush through what is said here. Basic considerations for protection under 11.1. Lightning protection may be installed to avoid accidents, severe injuries and death of humans and animals due to direct or indirect lightning. In many cases, the need may be for self-evident. For example, where the area is one in which lightning strokes are prevalent, where large number of people congregate, such as sports, cultural and assembly building, where there are very tall, complex or isolated structures, where there are structures of historic or cultural importance, structures with inherent explosive risk, where essential public services are connected, where there is wide use of electrical and electronic equipment. So with these category, almost every kind of building falls under this. So there is no question that my building does it require a protection. There is no question at all. Any building that has got a basic amenities which are to be protected against a failure and which are to be protected against a damage, that requires a lightning protection. So the substantiating standard IS-IEC, IS standard is in toto adopted from IEC 62305. It's got 4 parts, which basically gives a complete explanation of what do's and don'ts, maintenance aspect and everything about lightning protection. The part 1 talks about general principle. Part 2 talks about risk assessment. Now, this is a very critical part for designing a lightning protection system. I told you, even in the old type of theaters, if you see, they may have one Trishul kind of a rod at one corner and they claim everything is protected. And statutory approvals were also given just on the basis of one rod which is available. Now, this will not take care of the complete structure because there may be chances that the side flash may hit or probably the other end of the building may get hit because of lightning. Now, how do we design it? Standard insists for us detailed risk assessment to be done for a lightning protection system, which will have, there are several factors, as I told you at the beginning, like number of thunderstorm per square kilometer per year, location of the building, what type of building it is, what is the dimension of the building, how many people will be involved inside and for how many hours they will be involved, whether the building has got a surge protection device or not, whether the building has got a fire alarm which is automatic or manual, whether the cable entering the building is an overhead line or an underground line. So all these kind of inputs are to be provided. With that, you will have to evaluate the damage. So you'll have to basically strike a balance between the lightning threat available and the damage risk that can possibly happen. So what are the threats? Damages that we have already discussed. One damage, risk to human life. Another one, damage to the service, which is to be continuous to the public, cultural heritages, if any, and any damage in terms of a building or a livestock is considered under an economic loss. So part 3 gives you an elaborate methodology of planning, erection, testing, and maintenance of lightning protection system for the building which you are designing a lightning protection. Part 4 elaborately talks about the need for LPMS, which is LEMP protection system, lightning electromagnetic impulse protection system. Nothing but a surge protection device. So there are several equipments that we use which is supported by power, voice, data, and communication. So when you wanted to protect all these lines, obviously there is going to be a device which is required at every input, like power input, data input, voice input, to take care of those separate lines, because these are not associated with your building. These are cables which are externally coming inside. Now, sources of lightning. As we discussed at the previous case study which I have explained, one was on the building, strike down the building, the other one was on the service cable entering. So standard defines 4 sources of lightning strike. Source 1, lightning striking on a structure. The damage that is caused because of lightning hitting a structure. Lightning striking near a structure. Third one is lightning striking on a service that is entering a structure. And these can be like, your power, voice, data, communication. So any of these lines can be considered as a service to the structure. The fourth possibility is lightning flash near a service. Not necessarily that it has to hit this building. Probably it can hit in an area where you have a substation outside the building area, or even just far away also. So all these 4 possibilities are to be considered when you design a foolproof lightning protection for the building. Unless you take into account all the 4 sources, the protection measure cannot be sufficient. Right. So what is the purpose of lightning protection as ISIEC defines? Is to protect the structure lightning flash against a lightning flash with an air termination system. Remember, the air termination can be horizontal or vertical depending upon the building dimension and size and structure nature. So then, to conduct the lightning current safely to earth through the help of a down conductor. Thirdly, to disperse the current to the earth. So the basic principle is to allow the lightning energy to flow through a path without harming the structure or the circuits inside the structure. Right. How do we achieve this effective lightning protection system? What are all the factors that you need to see when you effectively design a lightning protection? First and foremost aspect is the type of protection, whether you are going to go for an angle of protection method or mesh method or rolling spear method. So this is to be determined depending on the nature of the building. Then what level of protection and what kind of risk assessment is to be done. Thirdly, technically qualified products as per the latest and relevant IEC standards. Many products of lightning protection are being gated as per IEC 62561 to ensure that certain testings are mandatory for the components to be used. Because many installations, when it is being contracted and when they use a local component which is available in the market, sometimes these components may not have been tested for that particular high energy. So obviously there are chances that splitting or damaging of the equipments can happen. Then size and dimensions of the components are very critical especially when it comes to the conductor and air terminal. Standard defines a specific size for every conductor that is to be used. The options are available in 62305 part 3. Then location of air terminal and coverage. This is very critical because if you locate a terminal and then say a coverage area of this much is being covered in the building, you have completely done the design. Finally, when it goes to the architectural purview, they may say, if you have the terminal here, my aesthetic of the building is getting spoiled, so please relocate it elsewhere. So if you do that way, obviously that particular area getting protected will be under risk. So I mean, always safety and aesthetic cannot go together. I used to tell this as an example. When you want to ride a bike, if you are concerned about your hairstyle, obviously a helmet is an hindrance. But if you wear helmet, obviously it is going to save. The same way, lightning terminal relocating for an aesthetical purpose should be kept as a secondary option, unless otherwise you can't do it. You'll have to do. Otherwise, the preference should be given for the safety aspect. Conductor routing and connections. There should not be multiple connections in this. The conductor routing should be as clear as possible and it should be as short as possible. There should not be multiple conductors being connected together. Sufficient and required earthing are to be provided. Wherever there are down conductors, there should be earth locations and earthing should be properly provided. And proper utilization of natural component. As I explained in the previous case study, if you use the natural component like a rebar or handrails or facade or your beam, all these have to be properly connected and ensure that there is an equipotentialization being done. So we discussed about what makes an effective lightning protection system. Now, what is the checklist that you need to do? You need to ensure is the lightning protection system is as per any latest standards. Now, if you see the older buildings which has got an existing lightning protection system in place, might have been installed with respect to the 2309 standards which was practiced earlier. However, the new standards have got a lot of changes. So this system need to be revisited and you need to have it as per the latest standard. Secondly, the number of down conductors, whether they are direct and adequate, is important. You need to ensure whether all the structures and buildings are under the zone of protection, which means in a clustered area of multiple building, there may be several buildings located here and there. Every building you need to see the risk assessment and then ensure what type of lightning protection is required there, and that need to be calculated based on zone of protection. And while we review the lightning protection drawing, you'll have to ensure both plan and elevation are being seen, because to ensure the routing conditions, the feasibility of routing the conductor, is it practically viable or not. Then considering electronic system protections, then is the earthing for electrical and lightning protection system are interconnected or not, and if there are any storage tanks or chimneys which is available, you need to ensure you'll have to follow OSID or NFPA standards, whichever is there as per the guideline of the client. And earthing resistance should be acceptable, and many of you have answered this. 92% was a correct answer. The values should be less than 10 ohms. Coming to design guideline, a down conductor should be installed at each exposed corner of the structure wherever it is possible. Because the corners will have the down conductors, there shall be chances of side flash from the trees. So maximum the corners which emits more number of charges need to have a conductor to avoid side flashes. The down conductor should form a direct continuation from top to bottom. It should be straight and vertical so that they provide the shortest distance in dissipating the current without any damage to the building or the circuits inside. Formation of S or looping, like you have a canopy, taking the conductor from top, going it this way, bringing it down, should be avoided. Usage of multiple connections should be avoided, and it should not be connected with multiple material. For example, you have an aluminum frame and you have a copper conductor. Do connect it in if it is really necessary, that too with the help of bimetallic connections, and not directly without any kind of bimetallic connections should not be connected. Now, there is also a method which is called a structural lightning protection system, which is nothing other than structurally routing the conductor. In a normal conventional system for an existing building, you will have the conductors routed outside. Whereas in this system, you will utilize the reinforcement bars, utilize that as a common earthing, take the conductors through the reinforcement inside and connect it to the lightning protection system on the top. A typical installation pictures I'll take you through. You will first lay the rebars. At the rebar level, you will lay the conductors. At the basement, you will have it connected through the columns, taken it through till the top of the terrace to connect on the lightning protection system. And proper connection clamps are required to interconnect the rebars and the conductors that you are using inside, and taking it through every column till the terrace. And finally, using earth fixing points wherever it is to be connected inside. For example, your body earthing of the equipments in the floor level has to be connected at that place. You will have to plan it at the beginning where this earth fixing point should come, and this will be your interface between the body to the natural earth which is there in the reinforcement area. So several floor levels are there. You can connect it to the rebars at that levels also. And finally, when this system is the concreting is completed, the earth fixing point will enable you to take a connection and connect to the lightning protection system here. And this forms a complete installation, and you will not see any external conductors outside the building. The biggest advantage of this system is you are using as much number of rebars inside interconnected, so that the dispersion of current happens and then the reduction of electromagnetic interference comes into implementation. Now, coming to earthing system, there are several practices which are being followed. Standard allows the use of CI, GI, copper bonded and stainless steel electrodes in the earthing system. Am I still connected?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm okay, thank you. Because I'm afraid I ran a lot without knowing it disconnected. So the very conventional type of system. Remember one more point I wanted to insist here. Every earthing system practiced is only a conventional earthing system. There are no specific magical earthing system available. The chemical earthing term that they use is nothing but a conventional earthing system used with an added chemical compound over top of it. So that chemical compound has got separate significance, which I'll tell you. Otherwise, every earthing, even the copper bonded with chemical earth being used, is also a conventional earthing system with a chemical added to it. Now, why did this transition between an CI or GI earthing and a copper bonded rod came in India is because the CI or GI rod is highly corrosive in nature or fastly corrosive than a copper or a copper bonded system. And when it is implemented, people used to put that along with salt and charcoal inside. The nature of salt and charcoal will eat away the electrode, or rather erode the electrode, and over a period of time, there will be a disconnect inside this system. And remember, your resistance is obtained only with the resistivity that you achieve by going deeper into the ground. For example, if you insert 3 meter or 6 meter, the soil resistivity at that level will be your resultant resistance which you obtain at the body equipment level. So if this electrode is disconnected, you may not be able to tap the least resistivity point below. So this kind of system had a problem in adding salt and charcoal to it. And that is why people practiced copper bonded earth electrodes and then adding chemical compound to it to avoid that kind of damages. And remember, in India, the earthing has taken avatar more than Mahavishnu. Everybody says different name for earthing: Mother Earth, Dirty Earth, Computer Earth, Instrument Earth, and many names are being given. However, remember, when it comes to earthing, there is only one earth which is in common, and that earth is sufficient for you to interconnect every equipment. Otherwise, the earth automatically gets interconnected. It is not insulated. Now, what is more important in implementation of earthing is the good practice of maintaining an earthing. Remember, earth pit is not a tree pot. Earth pit is not a dustbin. Earth pit is not just for the namesake to be placed in that location. You need to have a proper connection. You need to maintain the earth pit more than having an earth pit in place. Now, the old method of conventional method of CI pipe or GI pipe being used is clearly illustrated in IEEE standard, which says if you are using that kind of a pipe and using salt and charcoal, you should not put the salt and charcoal along with the electrode. The standard says you have to dig a trench around the electrode, put the salt and charcoal here. Only the electrolytes of the salt and charcoal has to go to the electrode and not the salt and charcoal directly. So if you do it directly, obviously there are going to be damages to the electrode, and the longevity will not be there, and your resistance cannot be consistent over a period of time. Right. So there are questions which arise with people like can we take an optional between the earthing, sir? There are several type of earthing system. If the resistance value is not achieved, why can't I try a plate earthing? No. Different type of earthings are practiced, yes, for different application. Now, if your intention is to have the least resistance, remember, going deeper and deeper can only achieve the least soil resistivity, out of which your least resistance can be obtained. So if your intention is to achieve the least resistance, a single driven rod with a deeper length can help you in bringing down the resistance to a great extent. Now, in case of location where going deeper is not possible, the soil is not cooperative, then you'll have to have multiple number of rods and then connect it together. Even in places where this is absolutely not possible, you have a rock and you can only dig it up to 1 meter below, then possibly you can try a plate earthing. And especially in areas of substation, where you can find the mesh system like horizontal conductors and vertical conductors connected together. This is something very critical, where in substations resistance alone does not matter. You need to bring down step potential, touch potential, and ground potential rise in control, for which you need to have a meshed system with a horizontal conductor and vertical conductor running in, and that will help you reducing the resistance, that will help you in reducing the step touch potential and GPR. Now, what are the important factors when you consider designing an earthing system? One, the purpose of system is to be understood. Design life of the system need to be understood. Soil resistivity should be calculated before, not just a theoretical rough value being told, because you will struggle at the last moment in achieving the resistance with the given resistivity, because the earthing design depends on the soil resistivity and based on which the proper designing is done. Corrosive nature of the soil will help you in determining what material you need to use, whether you are going to go for a GI or a copper bonded or a stainless steel. That is determined with the corrosive nature of the soil. Remember, there is also a logic, where if your resistivity is so low, remember there is going to be a high risk of corrosion for you also. Shape and available area of that location. because with the AutoCAD drawing we can design earth pit location, but actually practically at site implementing it, there may be a road, there may be some kind of structure which is there where you cannot dig out. So you need to also visit the site to understand, you know, the implemented design drawing can be practically applied. 62561 standard gives you the guideline for test requirement of all these components, may it be lightning protection system, counter, earth pit chamber, or whatever. Especially when it comes to earth electrode and compound, part 2 talks about the test requirement of earth electrode, and part 7 talks about the test requirement of earth enhancement compound. For example, part 2 says if you are using a copper bonded steel rod, you need to have electrical resistivity, tensile, bend, adhesion, coating, thickness, humidity, test to be done. So the first 3 tests ensure that you have the rod mechanically tested for the mechanical capabilities, and the rest of the test will ensure the corrosion resistance of the electrode. When it comes to compound, whatever material you can use, you are free to use, standard does not stop you. However, the 4 tests have to be passed. One is toxicity, characteristic, leaching properties, corrosion test, sulfur determination test, and resistivity test. If the compound passes this, the compound is free to be used along with the electrode. 60364 part 554 says the interconnection of all earthing system, your local body systems to your complete lightning protection can also be interconnected to it. So there is nothing harm in interconnecting the system. Do not have that hesitancy, go ahead with it. Then final part of this presentation is about surge protection devices, where you have to implement the surge protection device, not one number at one entry point and say I am protected. No, you need to ensure where all the lightning protection zones of the buildings are there and what type of risk can come. For example, will there be a lightning surge which can enter through any of my panel into the building? Will there be any switching surge that will damage my equipment? Will there be any surge that will travel through any other service like data or voice or communication? And all those lines are to be protected with appropriate surge protection devices. I'm not going to take you through products. However, I'll tell you, how this is being implemented in multiple places. Like, you have surge protection devices for power. You have surge protection for data, which can be used for routers and modems. You can use it for EPABX systems where the telephone lines comes from outside. Your dish antenna TVs or televisions, which are more costly, where you wanted to protect it against the surge from the coaxial lines. You can use it for your 4 to 20 milliamperes in terms of receiver as well as the transmitter, both field side as well as the DCS SCADA side. The SPDs are required. So in a nutshell, to precise, if your equipment is to be protected against a surge, not just a power SPD will help you. You need to ensure that equipment is connected with power, data, voice, and communication, and all those entry points are to be protected with the appropriate surge protection in that location. Then only you will be able to achieve a proper total solution which you wanted to protect against a lightning. This is very important. Now, what standards we have to follow is 62305 in IS and IEC, which is also delivered in National Building Code. 62561 is a testing standard that can be followed for the test requirement of the equipment. UL 467 for some good practices which can be adopted for earthing system. So there are several tests where government laboratories are available to test the system and give you a result. And we at Obo Betterman, just to conclude, we also supply, we also take care of the design part, support, and then give the client with a proper design solution towards lightning protection system. So with this, I end my presentation.